Officer Daniel Hayes and his K-9 partner Buddy had spent years patrolling the snow-covered mountains of Colorado Springs, believing they'd seen every kind of darkness the world could hold. But one freezing night, as a blizzard howled across Pikes Peak, Buddy began barking wildly, refusing to move on. Through the swirling snow, Daniel followed, and what he found would haunt him forever. A barefoot little girl, tied to a pine tree, her lips blue, her tiny hands bound with rope. That single discovery would unravel a criminal network hidden beneath the town's quiet streets, test the bond between man and dog, and prove that sometimes heroes come with fur and 4 paws. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. The storm had arrived without mercy. Pikes Peak, Colorado, was a ghost under snow that howled like a wounded animal. The wind tore through the narrow valley, bending pine trees and rattling the metal roofs of the few cabins scattered along the ridges. The temperature had plunged far below freezing, turning every breath into a pale ghost of its own. In the midst of that white chaos, a woman trudged forward, dragging something, or rather someone, through the drifts. Veronica Monroe was 42, tall and lean, her movements sharp like the crack of a whip. Her face, angular and pale, looked beautiful once, before bitterness hardened it into stone. Her black hair was tied back tightly, and her dark coat fluttered violently in the wind. Life had not been kind to Veronica. Once she'd been a caretaker for her younger sister's family. But after the car accident that killed her sister and brother-in-law, the burden of raising their daughter Lily had fallen on her, and she saw the child not as a gift, but as a debt. A debt she intended to sell. Lily Monroe was 7, a fragile little thing with blonde hair tangled and stiff with frost. Her small hands trembled violently, the skin raw and red from the cold. She had no gloves, no boots, only a torn pink coat and a thin nightdress beneath it. Each step left a faint trail of blood on the snow where the ice had cut her feet. The child tried to keep up, her voice trembling through chattering teeth. "Aunt Veronica, please. I'm cold. I'll be good. I promise I won't tell anyone." Veronica stopped, breathing heavily. The wind lifted her scarf and wrapped it around her face like a mask. Her eyes, gray, sharp, and empty of warmth, glared down at the girl. "You talk too much, Lily. You cry too much. Do you think anyone cares? Do you think they'll come for you? No one is coming. Not here. Not for you." Her voice cracked slightly, not from guilt, but from exhaustion. She dragged Lily to an old pine tree near the ridge, its trunk gnarled and scarred by years of storms. Locals called it the widow's tree, though few remembered why. "Stay quiet now," Veronica hissed, pulling a length of frayed rope from her coat pocket. The rope was rough, stiff with old frost. She looped it around the girl's wrists and threw it over a low branch. Lily whimpered, struggling weakly, but the woman yanked it tight. "Please, it hurts," Lily cried. Her breath fogged the air, then vanished instantly. "Pain's the only way to make you learn," Veronica muttered, her tone mechanical. She tied the final knot, stepped back, and stared at her work. For a long second she hesitated. There was something in the way the child's blue eyes searched hers, not defiance, not hatred, but confusion. A quiet question. Why? But Veronica forced herself to look away. "Someone will come for you soon. she said, half to herself. Someone who'll pay well. And with that, she turned and vanished into the white storm, her dark figure swallowed whole by the snow. 10 miles away, the storm wrapped around the quiet mountain town of Colorado Springs. Inside a police station lit only by flickering fluorescent lights, Officer Daniel Hayes sat at his desk, staring at a photograph pinned above the monitor. A smiling woman with long auburn hair holding a little girl with pigtails. The photo was old, corners curling, colors faded. His wife and daughter had died 3 winters ago in a car accident on Highway 24, a stretch of road that still haunted him. Daniel was 38, with short brown hair neatly trimmed, a clean but tired face, and deep-set hazel eyes that carried more silence than words. He was tall, broad-shouldered, a man built for order and duty. Since the accident, he'd buried himself in work, finding solace in the routine, in the cold discipline of law enforcement. Feelings were unpredictable. Cases, at least, had procedures. At his side lay Buddy, a 6-year-old German Shepherd canine, fur thick with tan and black patches. Buddy was muscular yet graceful, his eyes bright and almost human in their intelligence. He was Daniel's partner, his shadow, and in many ways the last thing tethering Daniel to life. Buddy had been trained for years to track, to protect, to obey. But with Daniel, he acted more like a friend than a subordinate. The dog often sensed what Daniel didn't say, the quiet ache, the memories that refused to fade. That night, Daniel zipped his navy blue jacket and prepared to head home. "Come on, Buddy," he said softly. "One more patrol before we call it." The dog's ears perked up, tail giving a small wag. Outside, snow blanketed the town in silence. The streets were empty, save for a few flickering street lamps glowing like dying candles. They drove slowly up the mountain road, tires crunching over ice. The world beyond the windshield looked unreal, white dunes of snow under a gray sky. Daniel turned the heater higher, his breath forming faint clouds as he spoke to the dog. "You know, some nights I think this town's too quiet for its own good." Buddy gave a low grunt in reply, nose pressed against the glass. Then, without warning, Buddy stiffened. His ears twitched, nostrils flaring. He let out a low growl, deep and sharp. Daniel frowned. "What is it?" Buddy barked once, then again, louder, his entire body tensing. Daniel followed the dog's gaze toward the dark line of pines up ahead. Through the whirling snow, something flickered in the headlights. A shape, a shadow. He slowed the car, heart beginning to race. "Stay put," he whispered, though both of them knew Buddy wouldn't. As Daniel stepped out, the wind hit him like a slap. It tore at his jacket, biting into his skin. He raised his flashlight and swept the beam across the trees. At first, he saw nothing, only the endless white and the shaking branches. Then the light caught it, a small figure at the base of a pine, motionless. For a moment, Daniel's mind refused to register what he was seeing. The figure was too small, too still. Then the pink of the coat came into view. "Oh my God," he breathed, "it's a child." He ran forward, snow swallowing his boots. The closer he got, the clearer the horror became. The little girl, tied by her wrists to a low branch, her feet buried in snow, her skin blue from the cold. Her head hung low, her body limp. "Hey, hey, sweetheart!" Daniel dropped to his knees, fumbling for his knife. Buddy circled them, whining softly. tail low. Daniel cut through the rope, the fibers frozen solid and sharp enough to slice his fingers. As the rope snapped, the girl collapsed into his arms, light as a bundle of clothes. "Jesus," he muttered, pressing 2 fingers to her neck. A faint pulse, weak, but there. Hang on, I've got you." He shrugged off his jacket, wrapping it around her small body. Her eyes fluttered open, blue, distant, barely focused. "They'll come back," she whispered, voice brittle like glass. "Please, don't let them find me." "No one's going to hurt you," Daniel said firmly, though his own voice shook. "You're safe now." Buddy pressed close, his warm breath steaming in the air, his eyes fixed on the trees. The wind roared louder, as if the mountain itself was listening. Daniel lifted the girl, carrying her toward the car. She weighed nothing. Inside, he cranked the heater and laid her across the back seat, Buddy curling protectively beside her. He radioed in for emergency dispatch, but the signal crackled with static. Storm interference. "Damn it," he hissed. He tried again, to no avail. As he turned the car around, headlights slicing through the white, something in the rearview mirror made his stomach twist. A pair of headlights glowed faintly in the distance. A dark SUV. It wasn't moving fast. It didn't need to. It was watching. Daniel gripped the wheel tighter. "Buddy," he muttered, "we're not alone out here." Buddy's ears pricked, a low growl rumbling from his throat. Daniel pressed the gas pedal, the cruiser lurching forward through the snow. The lights behind them faded, swallowed by the storm, but his gut told him it wasn't over. The girl was shivering under his coat, whispering something he couldn't quite make out. Daniel looked down at her pale face and felt something stir in him he hadn't felt in years. A flicker of purpose, fragile but burning. As they disappeared into the blizzard, Buddy turned one last time toward the darkness behind them, his golden eyes narrow and unblinking. And somewhere, beyond the veil of snow, the black SUV idled, its engine purring softly, waiting. Snow still whispered across the city of Colorado Springs the next morning, though the storm had finally loosened its grip on the mountains. The sky hung low and heavy, like it had not yet decided whether to bless the earth with light or bury it again in cold. Officer Daniel Hayes parked his patrol SUV in front of St. Catherine's Medical Center, the tires crunching on frozen slush. Inside, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights replaced the roar of the wind. Lily had been rushed there only hours earlier. Now she lay in a narrow hospital bed, her small body dwarfed by blankets and wires. Her skin was a map of bruises, old ones fading to yellow, new ones purple and angry. There were faint marks along her wrists, and her fingers twitched in sleep as though she were still trying to break free from invisible ropes. Daniel stood near the window, arms crossed, uniform still dusted with melted snow. Buddy sat at his feet, his black and tan fur gleaming under the sterile light. The dog hadn't left the girl's side since they arrived. His ears flicked every time a nurse entered, his eyes tracking every movement like a silent guardian. A middle-aged doctor with salt and pepper hair entered the room, pulling off his gloves. His name tag read, Dr. Howard Reeves. He was a calm man with steady hands and a weary kindness behind his eyes, the kind of man who had seen too much but still hoped for better. "She's stable for now," he said quietly. "But she's been through more than hypothermia, Officer Hayes." Daniel straightened. "What do you mean?" Dr. Reeves sighed. Bruises in different stages of healing, signs of chronic malnutrition. I'd estimate she's been abused for at least a year, possibly longer. Whoever did this didn't just want to hurt her. They wanted to break her." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You'll file a report with Child Services?" "Already did," the doctor said. "They're sending someone over." He gave a sympathetic nod toward Lily before leaving, his footsteps fading down the hallway. Moments later, the door opened again, and a woman stepped in. Tina Marshall, Child Protection Officer. She looked to be in her late 30s, short and curvy, with kind brown eyes framed by rectangular glasses. Her dark hair was tied in a messy bun, and she wore a gray coat over a blue turtleneck, her ID lanyard swinging as she walked. Despite her soft demeanor, there was a sharpness beneath it, an exhaustion carved from years of witnessing things no one should see. "Officer Hayes?" she asked, offering a firm handshake. "I'm Tina Marshall, Child Welfare Division." Daniel nodded. "She's been unconscious most of the morning. When she wakes up, I'll be here." Tina glanced at Buddy, who watched her intently. "And this must be your partner," she said softly. Buddy gave a single wag of his tail, but didn't look away from the bed. When Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open, Tina crouched down to meet her gaze. "Hey there, sweetheart. I'm Tina. You're safe now, okay? No one's going to hurt you." Lily blinked slowly, confusion clouding her expression. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Where's the door?" Tina frowned slightly. "What door, honey?" "The red door," Lily murmured, voice trembling. "They lock us in. Behind the red door." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Who's they, Lily?" But the girl didn't answer. Her small hand trembled as she reached toward Buddy. The dog immediately stepped closer, pressing his nose gently against her palm. The contact seemed to calm her. Her breathing slowed, her eyes heavy again. Tina turned to Daniel, her expression tightening. "Did you hear that? The red door?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, and it's not just a door." His mind flashed through old case files, trafficking operations, coded terms, half-buried investigations. In organized crime databases, Red Door was a code name, a national-level trafficking ring. We thought it was dismantled 2 years ago. Buddy suddenly stood, muscles tensed, a low growl vibrating in his chest. The sound startled Tina, who stepped back. Daniel crouched beside the dog. "What is it, boy?" Buddy's ears pricked toward the hallway, nostrils flaring. Someone was approaching, too quietly for normal footsteps. Daniel's hand instinctively went to his holster. A second later, the door opened and a nurse entered, pushing a cart. She was young, early 20s, with freckles and a nervous smile. "Sorry, just checking vitals," she said quickly. Buddy's growl faded, but his gaze stayed locked on her until she left. Tina exhaled slowly. "That dog's got instincts." Daniel nodded. "He saved my life more than once." Hours later, after Tina had taken statements and the nurses had left, Daniel sat beside the bed, staring at the sleeping child. The word "Red Door" replayed in his mind like static. Something in his gut told him this wasn't just about an abusive aunt. Meanwhile, miles away, in a dim motel room on the edge of town, Veronica Monroe sat hunched over a disposable phone. Her coat was gone, replaced by a cheap sweatshirt. The room smelled of cigarette smoke and desperation. Her eyes darted toward the curtained window, before she spoke into the phone. "She's gone," she hissed. "The girl ran off during the storm." The voice on the other end was male, low and cold. "You think I believe that? We paid you to deliver her, not lose her." "I'll fix it," Veronica snapped, though her voice trembled. "Just give me time." "You have 48 hours, the voice replied. "And Veronica, if the cops get her to talk about the red door, you won't need to worry about money ever again. You'll need to worry about breathing." The line went dead. Back at the hospital, Daniel received the preliminary investigation report from dispatch. Surveillance cameras on Route 19 had captured a dark SUV near the coordinates where he'd found Lily. License plate, partial match, possibly altered. Vehicle registered under a fake business. Red Line Transport, LLC. Daniel swore under his breath. "They're connected," he murmured. "Buddy, we just stepped into something big." The dog tilted his head, tail flicking once as if to say, "I know." Later that evening, Daniel met with Captain Laura Briggs at the precinct. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair cut in a sharp bob, her uniform crisp as the day she joined the force. Laura was known for her discipline and for being one of the few women who had clawed her way to the top in a department still full of men twice her size. "You're saying this girl's tied to a trafficking ring?" she asked, voice clipped. "I'm saying it fits," Daniel replied. The bruises, the secrecy, the way she talks about the red door. And now that SUV, it's not a coincidence. Laura tapped her pen thoughtfully. "If that's true, we'll need to involve federal agents. But for now, keep it quiet. You said the aunt's still missing." "Yeah," Daniel said. "And I don't think she's hiding because she's scared. I think she's working for them." Laura sighed. "You can file for temporary guardianship until the feds take over. Keep the girl safe." Daniel hesitated. "At my place?" "Unless you trust the system more than your own dog," she said dryly. That night, Daniel drove home with Lily bundled in the back seat. The roads were slick, the town silent beneath a sky full of stars. His house stood at the edge of the forest, a modest 2-story cabin, its porch light flickering softly. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and old books. He led Lily upstairs to his daughter's old room. It had been untouched since the accident, a small bed with a sunflower quilt, a wooden shelf lined with storybooks, a stuffed rabbit sitting in the corner. Lily paused at the doorway, hesitant. "Is this really okay?" she asked softly. Daniel smiled gently. "It's yours tonight." Buddy trotted in first, circling the bed before lying down at its side, his head resting on his paws. Lily sat carefully, her small fingers brushing his fur. "He's warm," she whispered. "I've never been this warm before." Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. "You're safe here, kid." But as he reached to turn off the light, Buddy's head jerked up. His ears stood straight, eyes locked on the window. A low, warning growl rolled from his chest. Daniel followed his gaze. Outside, down the hill, a pair of headbolt sheaves flickered once, then vanished into the trees. He stepped to the window, heart pounding. The night was silent again, too silent. But he didn't move, his muscles coiled, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Daniel whispered, "Good boy, stay sharp." Far beyond the woods, on a secluded ridge road, the black SUV idled. Inside sat a man with a shaved head and a headset, his voice low as he spoke into the radio. "Confirm visual. The girl's alive. Repeat. Target confirmed alive." The radio crackled with static. Then another voice answered, calm and cold. "Proceed to Phase 2. The man smiled thinly, eyes reflecting the red glow of the dashboard. "Roger that." Morning broke with the brittle stillness that follows a storm. The air above Colorado Springs shimmered faintly with frost, the sun's light sharp and cold as it touched the snow-blanketed rooftops. Officer Daniel Hayes stood beside his patrol SUV, sipping coffee that had long gone lukewarm. Buddy sat at his heel, nose twitching toward the distant line of pines as if sensing something beyond sight. Neither had slept much. Inside Daniel's house, Lily was still asleep in the upstairs room, his daughter's old bed now transformed into a fragile cocoon of safety. She clutched Buddy's red training towel, the closest thing she had to comfort. Daniel glanced back at the house once before turning toward the mountain road. "Stay here, boy," he murmured. But Buddy only gave him that look, steady, loyal, unyielding. Daniel sighed. "All right then, let's go see what we stirred up." 2 hours later they pulled into the industrial outskirts of town, where the snow had melted into gray sludge. An abandoned warehouse stood at the end of a dead road, its windows shattered, its walls tagged with graffiti. The words "Red Door Foundation" were faintly visible on a rusted metal sign half buried under snow. "Foundation," Daniel muttered, reading the letters aloud. "That's how they cover it." He and Buddy stepped inside, boots echoing off the concrete floor. The air was thick with mildew and old oil. Rows of metal crates lined the far wall, and in one corner stood a set of iron cages, small, rusted, and locked from the outside. Inside one lay a child's shoe. Another held a tattered pink jacket. Daniel felt his stomach twist. Buddy's nose went to work immediately, tail low, body tense. He growled softly near a pile of boxes, then began scratching at the floor. Daniel knelt beside him, pulling away a rotted plank. Beneath it lay a hidden hatch. When he pried it open, the smell of damp earth and gasoline wafted upward. A staircase descended into darkness. He clicked on his flashlight. The beam revealed something that made his heart lurch. A small room, barely large enough for 2 people to stand in, lined with soundproof panels. Chains hung from the walls, and on one of them was a mark, a red triangle. Beneath it, stenciled words read, "RDF Sum, Site 14. Daniel exhaled slowly. "Red Door Foundation," he whispered. "It's not a name, it's a network." As he took photos on his phone, Buddy's head snapped toward the entrance. The dog's ears pricked up, teeth bared. Daniel froze, listening. A faint sound, a footstep, careful and deliberate. He quickly doused the light and pressed against the wall. Through a crack in the doorway, he saw a man enter, a tall figure in a black coat, face hidden beneath a hood. The man moved like someone trained to disappear. Daniel recognized the type, professional, disciplined, and dangerous. He waited until the man crouched by one of the cages, muttering into a small radio. "Warehouses been hit. Clean it. Now." Daniel moved. He came up behind the man and grabbed him by the collar, slamming him into the wall. "Police? Hands where I can see." The man twisted, faster than expected, and drove an elbow into Daniel's ribs. The two struggled in the dark, crashing against the metal crates. Buddy lunged, teeth flashing, catching the man's sleeve and dragging him backward. A muffled shout, the sound of fabric tearing, and then the man broke free, sprinting toward the exit. Buddy leapt after him, but Daniel called out sharply, "No, stay!" The order froze the dog mid-step. The officer knelt, grabbing the torn scrap Buddy had ripped off, a patch bearing a red triangle insignia. Beneath it, embroidered letters read, "RDF Security Division." Within the hour, Daniel called the precinct and reported everything, photos, location, description. But instead of urgency, his captain's voice came back flat, clipped, almost rehearsed. "Officer Hayes," Captain Briggs said, "you are ordered to stand down. The Red Door operation is now under federal jurisdiction. Do not proceed further. Is that understood?" Daniel gritted his teeth. "With respect, ma'am, this is happening in our town. There are kids involved. I said, stand down, Hayes. You've done enough." Then the line went dead. Buddy watched him, head tilted, sensing his anger. Daniel raked a hand through his hair, muttering, "They're shutting it down because someone's protecting them." He looked at Buddy. "We're not done." That evening, as twilight bled over the mountains, Daniel drove back home. He told himself he'd wait, gather more evidence, but deep down he knew he wouldn't. He was a man who'd already lost one child. He wasn't about to let another disappear. When he entered the house, Lily was sitting on the couch in a blanket, her hair brushed neatly, thanks to a kind neighbor. Mrs. Grant, a retired nurse who sometimes brought soup when she saw police cars parked out front. Mrs. Grant was in her 60s, petite and gray-haired, her eyes always full of quiet worry. "She had another nightmare," she said softly. "Kept saying something about a truck. Black windows." Daniel nodded. "Thanks, ma'am. I'll take it from here." After she left, Lily looked up at him, her voice small. "Are they gone now?" Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, kiddo. They won't find you here." Buddy came over, nuzzling her knee, tail swishing gently. Lily smiled faintly and placed her tiny hand on his head. "He always knows when I'm scared," she said. "Yeah," Daniel murmured. "He's good at that." Night fell heavy and fast. Snow began again, soft flakes spinning through the air like ash. Daniel tucked Lily into bed upstairs, leaving Buddy curled beside her. Downstairs, he studied the photos on his phone, the cages, the red symbol, the security patch. His gut told him the people above him knew more than they admitted. By midnight, he'd made up his mind. He packed his service weapon, a flashlight, and his badge. He left a note on the kitchen table. "Keep the door locked. Don't open it for anyone but me." Buddy met him at the door, tail stiff. "You're coming too," Daniel said quietly. "Just like always." They headed back toward the warehouse, but halfway down the old ridge road, headlights flared behind them, bright, blinding. Daniel squinted into the rearview mirror. The vehicle was black. SUV, closing fast. "Hold on," he shouted. He swerved sharply as gunfire exploded, bullets shattering the back window. Glass rained over the seats. Buddy barked furiously, the sound raw and echoing. Daniel tried to accelerate, but the road curved sharply ahead. The tires lost traction, spinning on the ice. The SUV rammed them from behind. Daniel fought the wheel, but the cruiser skidded sideways, then flipped, tumbling down a snowy embankment. Metal screamed. The world spun. Then silence. Daniel's head struck the steering wheel, everything dimming to gray. He tasted blood. His vision blurred. Beside him, Buddy whined, trying to push his muzzle against Daniel's shoulder. In the back seat, Lily stirred weakly. He'd brought her along because she'd begged not to be left alone, and he couldn't say no. "Lily!" Daniel gasped, trying to reach her, but his arm wouldn't move. Two men emerged from the wreck, silhouettes against the snow, both dressed in black tactical gear. Their faces were hidden behind masks. One grabbed Lily, covering her mouth before she could scream. The other kicked Buddy aside, but the dog lunged back, biting into the man's sleeve with furious strength. "Get the girl!" the first man barked. Buddy was thrown off, hitting the snow hard, but already scrambling up. The SUV door slammed, engine roaring. Tires spun, flinging snow as the vehicle shot off into the darkness. Buddy chased until his paws bled, barking so loud the sound seemed to tear through the storm, but the SUV was faster, its taillights fading like red ghosts into the white void. Back by the wreck, Daniel lay half buried in snow, barely conscious. His breath came in shallow bursts. Buddy returned, panting, muzzle streaked with blood. He licked Daniel's cheek once, whining softly. Then, after a long pause, the dog turned toward the distant tire tracks and ran, his silhouette shrinking into the storm, the only trace of movement in an endless white world. Behind him, in the snow, something small fluttered, a red scarf, Lily's. The night over Denver was a vast silver wound. Snow fell softly but endlessly, blanketing the outskirts of the city in silence. Inside an old freight warehouse by the frozen river, a single red light blinked above a steel door, the kind of red that didn't warm but warned. Behind that door, Lily Monroe awoke with a gasp. Her breath came out in clouds, her wrists bound with nylon ties. The floor beneath her was concrete, damp and bitterly cold. Around her, wooden crates towered like walls, each stamped with the same symbol, a red triangle enclosing the words, "Red Door Logistics." She tried to move, but her small body was too weak, too bruised. Her eyes darted across the room until they landed on another familiar shape, a woman's silhouette framed in the doorway. Veronica Monroe stepped into the dim light, her face gaunt and pale. The storm outside had turned her hair wild and her coat soaked through, yet her expression carried something Lily had never seen before: fear. Veronica's once cold eyes flickered with unease as she approached. "Lily," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I didn't want it to come to this. You have to believe me." Lily's voice cracked. "You tied me to a tree." Veronica flinched as if struck. She crouched down, lowering her voice. "I had no choice. They would have killed me if I didn't deliver you. You don't understand the people behind this." Her hand shook as she reached for the rope binding the girl. She hesitated, then stopped. "They're here now. I can't stop it." Before Lily could answer, heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. A man's voice, deep, precise, cut through the air. "Monroe, get away from her!" The figure who entered was tall and broad-shouldered, his presence commanding even in silence. Victor Kane, head of security for the Red Door Foundation. He was in his 40s, with a buzz cut of iron-gray hair and a face that bore the scars of military life. His black tactical jacket stretched across his frame, and a pistol hung loosely at his side. His eyes were pale blue, the kind that never blinked at suffering. Veronica stepped back immediately. "Victor, she's ready for transport. I was just making sure." He cut her off with a glance. "Your job is over. You're being paid to disappear after tonight." He motioned to 2 guards behind him, masked, faceless men in black uniforms. "Get the girl on the truck. 15 minutes to move." Lily whimpered, curling away. Veronica reached forward instinctively. "Please, she's just a child." "Enough," Victor snapped. "You think sentiment will save you?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You should know better than to betray Red Door." Veronica froze. The color drained from her face. She said nothing more. Meanwhile, miles away, the world was blurry and bright. Daniel Hayes blinked awake to the beeping of a heart monitor. The ceiling above him was white, sterile, a hospital. His head throbbed, his shoulder bandaged. The memory of the crash hit him like a second impact. "Lily," he rasped. A nurse in scrubs looked up, startled. "Sir, you need to rest." But Daniel was already swinging his legs over the bed. His voice came low, commanding. "Where's my dog?" The nurse hesitated. "They found a service collar near the crash site, but no sign of—" Daniel didn't wait to hear the rest. He yanked the IV from his arm, pulling on his uniform jacket. Every bone in his body protested, but the fire in his chest burned through the pain. He grabbed his phone and activated the K9 GPS tracker. A blinking dot appeared, moving slowly toward Denver. "Good boy," Daniel muttered. "You're still on her trail." An older nurse passing by, Martha Klein, stopped at the door. She was in her 50s, tall and kind-eyed, the kind of person who had seen too much tragedy but never lost her compassion. "Officer Hayes, you shouldn't be walking. You have a concussion." Daniel paused only long enough to meet her gaze. "A little girl's life is on the line. I'm not sitting this one out." He left the hospital before she could argue. Buddy limped through the night, his left hind leg dragging slightly where a bullet had grazed him. The snow soaked into his fur, but his nose stayed low to the ground, following the faint scent of Lily's red scarf. He moved with purpose, driven by something primal and fierce, the bond between protector and child. When he reached the edge of Denver's industrial district, he stopped. The scent was stronger here. He growled softly, head tilting toward the warehouse ahead. Inside, engines roared to life. Men shouted. Crates were being loaded onto trucks under floodlights. Buddy crouched low behind a stack of pallets, eyes glowing amber in the dark. Moments later, Daniel's SUV pulled up nearby, headlights off. He stepped out, holding his pistol tight, his breath visible in the frigid air. He spotted Buddy and exhaled a sigh of relief. "You never quit, huh?" Buddy gave a faint wag, then turned toward the warehouse, growling low. Daniel followed his gaze. "Let's end this." They moved in silence. Daniel picked the side entrance lock while Buddy waited, muscles taut. Inside, the noise grew clearer, men speaking Russian and English interchangeably. One of them laughed. "These kids fetch a higher price overseas. Red Door always delivers." Daniel's stomach turned. He peered around the corner and saw at least 6 armed guards near the loading bay. The back of a truck stood open, crates stacked high. He recognized the red triangle logo immediately. Among them, he caught a glimpse of blonde hair, Lily, tied near a steel pillar. Buddy whined softly. Daniel whispered, "Easy, boy, wait for my signal." Then all at once, chaos erupted. A guard spotted them, shouting in alarm. Buddy lunged first, his body a blur of fur and muscle, teeth sinking into the man's arm. The gun went off wildly, bullets sparking against the wall. Daniel fired back, hitting another guard square in the shoulder. 2 more turned, shouting in panic. "Move!" Daniel roared. He sprinted forward, ducking behind crates as Buddy dragged the first guard to the floor. Another man swung a metal pipe, but Buddy dodged and clamped down on his leg, sending him screaming. Daniel reached Lily and cut the ties binding her wrists. "Lily, can you hear me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. He pulled her close. "We're getting out." Behind them, Veronica stumbled into view, face streaked with tears. "Daniel, behind you!" Daniel spun just as Victor Kane appeared, pistol raised. "You just don't know when to quit, officer," Victor sneered. "You have no idea how deep this goes." "Drop the gun," Daniel barked. Victor smiled. "You drop yours." Buddy's growl rolled like thunder. The man barely turned before the dog launched himself forward. Teeth met flesh. Victor's shot went wild, grazing Daniel's arm. The second bullet struck Buddy in the chest. The dog yelped but didn't let go, dragging Victor down in a violent struggle. Daniel fired once. The bullet hit Victor's shoulder, sending him sprawling. The gun clattered across the floor. Sirens erupted in the distance. Red and blue lights flashed against the falling snow. SWAT trucks screeched to a halt outside. Officers flooded in, shouting commands. Veronica dropped to her knees, hands raised, sobbing. Daniel crawled to Buddy, who lay breathing heavily, blood staining his fur. Hey, stay with me," Daniel whispered, pressing a hand against the wound. "You did it, Buddy. You saved her." Buddy looked up weakly, eyes half closed. His tail gave one faint wag. Lily knelt beside him, crying into his neck. "Please don't go," she whispered. The sirens grew louder, mixing with the sobs and the chaos. Paramedics rushed in. From the back of a police car, Veronica screamed, "He's not the only one! You hear me? Red Door isn't finished. There are others." But her voice was drowned by the blizzard as the world dissolved into flashing lights and swirling snow. Daniel cradled Buddy's head as the dog finally went still, his gaze lingering on Lily until the very end. Above them, snow continued to fall, soft and endless, covering the blood, the scars, and the footprints. But not the truth. The snow had begun to melt along the ridges of Pikes Peak, turning the frozen world into a quiet stream of life again. What had once been a graveyard of ice was now a cradle of sound, water dripping from rooftops, birds returning, branches whispering to the thawing wind. 3 weeks had passed since the gunfire and sirens, since the warehouse in Denver had burned down with its secrets. The Red Door operation was gone, and yet, for those who had lived through it, the echoes of its cruelty remained. In the Police K-9 Rehabilitation Center, morning sunlight spilled across a row of kennels, glinting off metal and snowmelt. The smell of antiseptic hung faintly in the air, mingled with the earthy scent of wet fur. In one of the enclosures, Buddy lay on a padded cot, his chest rising and falling slowly under the white bandages that wrapped his ribs. His fur had been shaved in patches where the bullet wounds had been treated. He looked older now, quieter, but his eyes still held that steady light, the kind that could guide a man out of any darkness. The door creaked open. A young vet technician entered, a petite woman in her late 20s with freckles and auburn hair tucked beneath a gray beanie. Her name was Riley Bennett, a recent graduate from the police veterinary program. Riley had the calm hands of someone who'd worked around frightened animals her whole life, and an unshakable patience that came from being raised on a small ranch outside Boulder. She smiled softly as Buddy's ears flicked toward her voice. "Morning, hero," she whispered, checking his IV line. "They say you saved them all. You just need to save yourself now." At that moment, a familiar set of footsteps echoed in the hallway, heavy, measured, but softened by emotion. The door swung open, and Lily ran in, her blonde hair loose and shining in the morning light. She had grown a little stronger in those weeks. The bruises were gone, replaced by color in her cheeks. Her pink winter jacket was clean and new, the gift of a local family who'd followed her story on the news. "Buddy," she cried, throwing herself forward. The dog's head lifted, tail thumping weakly against the bed. Lily wrapped her small arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur. "You came back. You didn't leave me like everyone else did." Her voice cracked between laughter and tears. Buddy gave a low whine, licking her cheek, his tail wagging with more strength now. Riley smiled and stepped aside as Officer Daniel Hayes appeared behind them. Daniel still wore his uniform, though the sling on his arm and the faint scar along his temple told of the price he'd paid. He stood at the threshold for a moment, taking in the scene, the sunlight, the child, the dog, and for once the world didn't feel cold. "Looks like someone's been waiting for us," he said quietly. Lily turned, eyes bright. "He's okay now, right?" Riley nodded. "He's tougher than most humans, I know." She gave Daniel a look that mixed respect with quiet humor, including some officers. Daniel chuckled softly. "I'll take that as a compliment." Outside the window, snow melt ran through the gutters, glinting like liquid glass. Life at last was moving again. In the following weeks, the news broke nationwide. Red Door Foundation, once a seemingly charitable nonprofit, was revealed as the front for a vast trafficking operation. Its CEO, Charles H. Devlin, a polished philanthropist with salt and pepper hair and a smile that had charmed mayors and donors alike, was arrested in his mountain estate. He was 53, tall, perfectly groomed, and utterly hollow inside. Investigators described him as a man who hid monstrosity behind manners, who'd built an empire on silence and fear. Veronica Monroe, the woman who'd once traded family for survival, was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. In court she had wept, not for herself but for the sister she had betrayed, and the niece she had nearly delivered to hell. Her final words to Daniel were barely audible. "Take care of her, better than I ever did." He didn't answer. Some things didn't need words. The day the case closed, Daniel was awarded the Medal of Valor. The ceremony was held in the town square beneath fluttering flags. The mayor gave a speech, the cameras flashed, and applause rippled through the crowd. But Daniel's gaze was fixed on the edge of the stage, where Lily stood clutching Buddy's leash. She wasn't crying or fidgeting. She was smiling. That was all the recognition he needed. Later that afternoon, in a small courtroom warmed by sunlight, Judge Amelia Rowe, an older woman with sharp features softened by wisdom, handed Daniel a folder. "Officer Hayes," she said, "you have been approved for full guardianship of Miss Lily Monroe." Daniel's breath caught. He looked at Lily, who grinned up at him, eyes shining. The judge smiled faintly. "You've both been through enough storms. It's time you had a home." Spring arrived like forgiveness. The snow retreated from the meadows, revealing green shoots pushing through the soil. The air smelled of pine and wet earth, and Mirror Lake shimmered beneath the early sun. Daniel parked the truck by the trailhead and stepped out, helping Lily down. Buddy followed, limping slightly but determined, his fur brushed and gleaming once more. The three of them walked to the edge of the lake, where the water mirrored the sky. In Daniel's hands was a small maple sapling, its roots wrapped in burlap. In Lily's, a small tin box. She knelt carefully, digging a shallow hole with her gloved hands, while Buddy lay beside her, nose twitching at the scent of new earth. Inside the box were three things: a folded red scarf, a photo of the three of them, and a slip of paper on which Lily had written, in uneven letters, "Home," where Buddy heard the voice of the heart. Daniel helped her lower the sapling into place. "You sure about this spot?" he asked softly. "Yeah," Lily said, brushing her hair from her face. "It's sunny, and Buddy likes it here." Daniel smiled. "Then it's perfect." They filled the hole together, Lily patting the soil gently while Buddy nudged a small stone into place with his nose. When it was done, Daniel planted a simple wooden sign beside the tree. The word carved into it read only, "Home." For a moment they stood there in silence, the wind rippling the lake, the maple's tiny leaves trembling. Daniel looked at Lily. "You're not scared anymore, are you?" She shook her head, eyes bright. "No, not when I have you and Buddy." Buddy barked once, as if to agree, then rolled onto his side, tail sweeping the soft grass. Daniel laughed quietly and rested a hand on the dog's head. "You did good, partner. Real good." From across the meadow came the sound of laughter, children's laughter. The other kids rescued from Red Door were running in circles, chasing a red kite that fluttered against the blue. Volunteers and social workers watched from a distance, smiles breaking the last of winter's hold. Riley Bennett, now assigned to the recovery team, waved at them from near the picnic tables. "He's walking better," she called out. "Because he knows the world needs him," Daniel answered, his voice steady. Lily giggled, spinning in the grass as Buddy bounded clumsily after her. For the first time, Daniel allowed himself to breathe, to truly believe that what was broken could heal. The sun climbed higher, the wind was soft and kind, and in the rustle of the maple's new leaves, Daniel could almost hear the echo of the past, his wife's laugh, his daughter's voice, and feel that somehow, through this child and this dog, they had found their way back to him. The camera of the moment, if there had been one, would have lingered there, on a girl, a man, and a German shepherd standing beneath a newborn tree, framed by the shimmer of Mirror Lake. From winter's ruin they had built a home. From fear they had found belonging. From silence they had discovered love's voice again. And as Buddy raised his head to the breeze, eyes half closed, it almost seemed like he was listening to the same thing that had guided him all along, the sound of a heart calling home. In the end, spring. After the snow reminds us that even in the darkest winters of our lives, God never stops working miracles. Sometimes His angels do not come with wings. They come on 4 paws, with loyal hearts and eyes that see beyond pain. Buddy was not just a dog. He was a messenger of love, a symbol of faith, and proof that no soul, human or animal, is ever truly forgotten by heaven. Through Daniel's courage, Lily's innocence, and Buddy's devotion, we are reminded that healing is real, forgiveness is possible, and family is not always bound by blood. It is chosen, built, and blessed. If you believe that miracles still happen in our everyday lives, that love can heal what pain has broken, and that God places protectors in our path when we need them most, then let your heart say it aloud in the comments. Type Amen to thank God for every unseen miracle that still walks beside us. Share this story to spread faith, hope, and love. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true stories of grace and courage. May God bless you, protect your family, and send His angels, 2-legged or 4, to watch over your path.